They only control you if you let them. But once you learn Machiavelli's darkest lesson, no one can ever touch your power. This is not just a playlist. This is 4 weapons. 4 keys to power, left behind by Machiavelli. The first video, They Can't Control You If You Do This, Machiavelli's Darkest Lesson. How to break every invisible chain of manipulation. The second, I shouldn't be teaching you this, but here we are, Machiavelli's warning. A ruthless warning that most people don't dare to hear. Don't scroll away. Because the moment you ignore this, that's the moment someone else takes control. Drop one word in the comments, power, to remind yourself never to hand it over again. The third video, You'll see this when you're ready to change, Machiavelli. The awakening moment, the door to real transformation. And finally, how to deal with toxic people, Machiavelli's 7 cold laws. 7 cold laws to cut off toxicity and guard your freedom. This is not just content. This is Machiavelli. And once you step through these 4 lessons, you will never be the same again. Have you ever noticed that some men never argue, never raise their voice, never justify themselves? They don't beg for validation. They don't fight to be seen. They simply withdraw. And when they do, something strange happens. The room feels colder, people grow restless, and silence begins to scream louder than any words ever could. That's not passivity. That's calculated power. Machiavelli understood this deeply. To him, withdrawal is not retreat, it's domination through absence. He wrote, "A prince must know how to disappear without losing his influence." Think about it. When you suddenly stop replying to someone who always expects your answer, what happens? When you no longer show up for the friend who only calls when they need you, how do they react? When you choose silence instead of over-explaining yourself, do people respect you less, or do they feel unsettled, even threatened? Most men believe kindness guarantees respect. But look around. How many kind men do you know who are ignored, overlooked, or worse, used? How many times have you answered a message instantly, only to realize later that your quick reply wasn't appreciated, it was expected? How many times have you explained yourself just to keep the peace, and in return lost a piece of your own dignity? This is the trap, and Machiavelli would smirk at it, because he knew people don't actually fear losing your love. They fear losing their grip on you. They don't miss you, they miss their ability to summon you. So here's the question. Are you the man who shows up every time, even when it drains you? Are you the man who explains, even when no one listens? Are you the man who sacrifices silence just to keep others comfortable? If you are, then understand this. You haven't been loved. You've been used. Machiavelli warned that predictability is not a virtue. It's a liability. The man who is always available is never feared, and a man who is not feared is always controlled. But the man who can withdraw, who can disappear without apology, becomes untouchable. His silence is no longer weakness. It is strategy. It is evolution. And in a world addicted to noise, silence becomes dominance. So, let me ask you honestly, have you ever felt that your biggest mistake was being too accessible? That your kindness was taken for granted? That your silence, instead of being a shield, was stolen from you because you didn't know how to use it? If that resonates, write this below. I disappear to reclaim my power. Because today, we begin a lesson Machiavelli would have called essential for survival. How to withdraw without losing influence. How to disappear and yet become more powerful than ever. You see, silence is only the beginning, because once you withdraw, something else begins to happen. When you remove yourself, the world doesn't just lose your presence, It starts to expose its dependency. Absence, when intentional, becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, people don't simply see you. They see their own entitlement, their own discomfort, their own fear of no longer having access to what they once took for granted. Think about a relationship you've seen, maybe your own, maybe a friend's. As long as one person always chases, always explains, always reassures, the other holds the power. But the moment that dynamic flips, the moment the giver stops explaining, stops chasing, and disappears into silence, suddenly the one who was in control begins to panic. Why? Because people don't miss you. They miss the leash they once had on you. So let me ask you, have you ever had someone accuse you of changing the moment you stopped being available to their every demand? Did they call you cold, selfish, distant, when all you did was protect your energy? And here's the deeper question. Did that reaction reveal their love or their dependency? Machiavelli would tell you, people don't fear losing your affection. They fear losing their grip on you. Now, let's bring this to reality. Picture the office colleague who always runs to you when deadlines close in. You sacrifice your own time to help, but when you finally say no, suddenly you're the problem. Or the friend who calls only when their world is collapsing. The day you stop picking up, they vanish. Were they ever your friend, or were you just their emotional insurance policy? This is what Machiavelli called a calculated withdrawal. It's not revenge. It's not bitterness. It's the reintroduction of yourself no longer as a servant to other people's needs, but as a sovereign force. Because let's be brutally honest, the man who is always there loses his scarcity. And scarcity is the bedrock of influence. Look at history. The generals who were feared weren't the ones constantly on the battlefield, bleeding themselves dry in every small skirmish. They were the ones who held back, who waited, who disappeared from the front lines until the perfect moment. When they returned, they didn't just arrive, they struck like thunder. So here's the lesson. If you're tempted to over-explain yourself, to prove your intentions, to reassure people who never once reassured you, pause. Ask yourself, does this person truly deserve my presence, my words, my energy? Or are they simply addicted to the version of me that never says no? Let me flip the question back to you, and I want you to answer in the comments. How many times have you given, explained, or sacrificed only to feel drained, unappreciated, and invisible? And what happened the one time you pulled back, stopped explaining, and chose silence? Did people respect you more, or did they accuse you of betrayal? This is the proof. Withdrawal is not cowardice. It is evolution. It is the moment you stop reacting and start positioning. The moment you become unpredictable, unreachable, untouchable, and let me tell you something few men dare to admit. The world notices more when you vanish than when you try to prove yourself. Because when you disappear without warning, they're not wondering what happened to you. They're wondering what power you've just discovered that finally made you stop explaining. So ask yourself again, would you rather be loved for being endlessly available or respected for being strategically scarce? Would you rather be the servant of everyone's needs or the sovereign of your own? If you feel the truth of this hitting you, type it below. My absence creates power. Because from this point forward, every act of withdrawal is no longer retreat. It is the sharpening of your weapon. It is the reset of your dignity. And it is the first step to becoming the kind of man Machiavelli would call untouchable. If absence builds power, then predictability destroys it. Machiavelli never considered predictability a virtue. He saw it as a liability. Because here's the truth. The man who is always available is never feared. And the man who is not feared is always controlled. Think about your own life. How many times have you answered instantly, only to realize people stopped valuing your time? How many times have you said yes on demand, and in return, receive nothing but more demands. The pattern is clear. The more predictable you are, the less respected you become. This isn't just psychology, it's human nature. Scarcity creates value. Abundance breeds contempt. Look at it this way. When gold is everywhere, it loses its worth. But when gold is rare, people will cross deserts, risk wars, even kill for it. Now, ask yourself, what makes your presence any different? Let me give you a real-world example. Think of the coworker who's always the first to volunteer, always saying yes, always staying late. At first, people thank them, but soon they stop noticing. Their effort becomes background noise. And the day they finally say no, the office doesn't respect their boundary, it resents it. Why? Because by being predictable, they trained everyone to expect obedience. Or consider relationships. The partner who always replies within seconds, who always reassures, who always bends to keep the peace. Do they inspire love, or do they inspire boredom? Psychologists call this the law of diminishing returns. The more constantly available you are, the faster people take you for granted. Let me ask you directly, have you ever felt invisible, even while giving your best to someone? Have you ever felt your kindness was repaid with indifference? And here's the sharper question. Did that happen because you weren't valuable or because you were too predictable? Machiavelli would be ruthless in his answer. Kindness without boundaries breeds contempt. Predictability is the death of respect. History proves this. The leaders who held power weren't the ones who made themselves predictable. Think of Genghis Khan. He never attacked the same way twice. He used silence, misinformation, and sudden withdrawal to keep enemies guessing. Think of Julius Caesar. He mastered timing, sometimes appearing merciful, other times brutal. His unpredictability kept both enemies and allies on edge. Power was never in their presence alone. Power was in the fear of not knowing their next move. Now, bring this closer to home. How often do you explain yourself just to calm someone down? How often do you give answers just to keep the peace? And how often do you realize, afterward, that your explanations didn't build respect, they built expectation? Here's a painful truth. Every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't deserve it, you hand them ammunition. Your transparency becomes their leverage. And the more predictable you are, the easier it is to manipulate you. So let me ask you, and I want you to answer in the comments, what's one area of your life where your predictability has turned into weakness? At work, in friendships, in love? And what would happen if, starting today, you broke that pattern? Because the man who is always reachable, always explainable, always predictable, is not respected. He is used, and worse, he is forgotten. But the man who learns to break the rhythm, who learns to say nothing instead of over-explaining, who disappears instead of constantly showing up, becomes unforgettable. He becomes the storm people whisper about, because no one knows when or how he'll return. So, here is your challenge. The next time you feel pressured to respond, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of strength or out of predictability? If it's not a powerful yes, then let it be a strategic no, because only then will people stop assuming you are theirs to command. Only then will they begin to feel the weight of your silence. Only then will you reclaim the one thing predictability always steals, your leverage. If you feel this, type it below. My predictability is my enemy. Because Machiavelli knew what too many men forget. In the game of power, being predictable is the fastest way to be controlled. But being unreadable is the first step to becoming untouchable. Silence is not emptiness. It is pressure. It is disruption. It is the invisible hand that turns comfort into discomfort, certainty into doubt. Machiavelli knew this. He wrote, The wise man does not need to lie, he only needs to withhold. When everyone is shouting, the man who says nothing becomes the most powerful voice in the room. Why? Because silence forces others to confront themselves. Think about it. Have you ever been in a heated argument where one person suddenly stops responding? What happens? The other grows louder. They ramble. They reveal too much. The silence didn't just win, it exposed. This isn't theory. In negotiation rooms across the world, silence is one of the deadliest tactics. A skilled negotiator makes an offer, then says nothing. The other side, uncomfortable with the void, fills it often with concessions, secrets, or mistakes. The one who held silence didn't just save words. He gained leverage. Now let's bring this to daily life. Imagine someone insults you. Your instinct is to clap back, to defend yourself. But what if, instead, you say nothing? What if your silence forces them to sit in the echo of their own words? Have you noticed how quickly insults lose power when you refuse to feed them with a reaction? So let me ask you directly, how many arguments in your life could you have won not by shouting louder, but by saying nothing at all? How many conflicts drained you when silence could have preserved both your energy and your dignity? Here's the brutal truth, Machiavelli would whisper. Every time you react instantly, you give away your position. Every time you explain, you hand them a map of your weaknesses. But every time you withhold, you become unreadable. And the unreadable man becomes ungovernable. Look at history again. During World War II, Winston Churchill often paused for long stretches in Parliament before answering. His silence built suspense, forcing even his enemies to lean forward in anxious anticipation. In martial arts, masters know that not striking is sometimes the deadliest strike, because it forces the opponent to waste energy, to reveal openings, to destroy themselves in impatience. Silence is not retreat, it is psychological warfare. But let's not stay only in history. Think of your own life. How many times have you texted someone back immediately, only to feel regret later because they expected it every time? How many times have you defended yourself to someone who wasn't listening anyway? And how many times did you feel drained, even defeated, because your words gave them exactly what they wanted, your energy? Let me ask you, and I want you to answer in the comments. When was the last time you used silence as a weapon, instead of seeing it as weakness? And what happened when you did? Because here's the reality. Manipulators hate silence. They can't use it. They can't predict it. They can't control it. Your words give them material to twist. Your silence gives them nothing except their own reflection. That's why Machiavelli considered silence more dangerous than the sword. Because in silence, you reveal everything while showing nothing. You force others to question themselves, to expose themselves, to crumble under the weight of their own noise. And here's the challenge for you. The next time you feel pressured to explain, to respond, to defend, pause. Ask yourself, am I about to speak because it serves me, or because it serves them? If the answer is not clear, choose silence. Not out of fear, but out of strategy. So let me give you a command to carry with you. Do not explain. Do not chase. Do not clarify. Let the silence stretch. Let them feel it. Let their own words echo back with no reply to hide behind. Because when silence enters the room, it doesn't calm people. It terrifies them. It rattles manipulators. It exposes entitlement. It flips the balance of power. If this speaks to you, write it below. My silence is my weapon. Because in a world addicted to noise, silence isn't absence. It is rebellion. It is strategy. It is dominance. Most men are taught that kindness is the highest virtue. Be agreeable. Be helpful. Say yes. Show up. But Machiavelli would laugh at this illusion. Because here is the truth. Kindness without boundaries is not respect. it's servitude. And servitude is never admired, it is exploited. Look around you. The man who always says yes at work is not promoted. He's loaded with more work. The woman who always sacrifices in relationships is not cherished. She's taken for granted. The friend who is always available is not respected. They're called only when there's a crisis. So let me ask you, how many times have you said yes when every fiber in your body wanted to scream no? How many times have you offered your time, your energy, your attention, only to realize later it wasn't appreciated, it was expected? And here's the deeper cut. How many times did your kindness buy you nothing but contempt? Machiavelli wrote, "The man who seeks to be loved by all becomes the slave of the ungrateful." Think about that. Not the servant of the grateful, but the slave of the ungrateful. Because the more you give without limits, the more people stop seeing your effort as a gift. They see it as a duty. And every time you break your back to please them, you reinforce the belief that your value is tied to your usefulness. Let's take a real-world example. The employee who covers every shift, answers every call, rescues every mistake. At first, the boss praises them, but soon it's no longer praise. It's expectation. And when that employee finally says, "I can't," the boss doesn't thank them for years of sacrifice. The boss resents them for breaking the pattern. Or in love, the partner who constantly bends, apologizes first, reassures endlessly. At first, they're called loving, but over time, they're labeled clingy, boring, too much. The very kindness that was supposed to build connection becomes the reason for disrespect. Now let's step into history. Machiavelli admired rulers who knew when to withhold kindness. A prince who is generous to all eventually bankrupts himself. A king who tries to please every faction eventually loses his throne. Because the people he fed with mercy did not repay with loyalty, they repaid with demands. So let me challenge you. Do you really believe your endless kindness is winning you respect? Or is it chaining you into a role where your worth is measured only by how much you serve? And here's the most dangerous part. When you train people to rely on your kindness, they stop respecting you as a person. You become a function. Their crisis manager, their emotional butler, their shield against their own discomfort. And once you're reduced to a function, you are disposable. The moment you stop serving, they will replace you. So tell me honestly, and write it in the comments, where in your life has your kindness turned into a leash around your neck? Who have you been serving when you should have been leading? And what would happen if, starting today, you withdrew that service? Because here's what Machiavelli would tell you. True power is not in being endlessly needed. True power is in being rare, in being selective, in deciding who earns your kindness and who doesn't. This doesn't mean cruelty. It means clarity. It means remembering that your energy, your time, your presence, these are not infinite donations. They are investments, and not everyone deserves them. So here is your command. The next time someone demands your yes, pause. Ask yourself, am I saying yes out of strength or out of fear of being unloved? If it's fear, then that yes is a leash, and the only way to break it is with silence. If this hits you, type it below. My kindness has boundaries. Because Machiavelli knew the danger of men who confuse servitude with virtue. He would remind you, the world does not respect your unlimited kindness. It respects your ability to withdraw it. And only then will your kindness stop being a leash and start becoming a weapon. Your energy is not infinite. It is currency, and who you give it to is a reflection of who you obey. Machiavelli would call this the most overlooked law of power. The man who wastes his strength on trivial battles will have nothing left when the real war comes. Think about your own life. How many meaningless arguments have stolen your peace? How many late-night replies have drained you just to prove a point to someone who never cared? How many times have you sacrificed your sleep, your focus, your sanity to win a fight that never should have been fought? You wake up tired, not from hard work, but from overexposure, exposed to people who drain you, exposed to situations that weaken you, exposed to habits that leak your power drop by drop until all that's left is resentment. Carl Jung once said, "Every thought, every emotion draws from a limited reservoir." But Machiavelli goes further. He wouldn't just say, protect your energy. He would say, weaponize it. Because energy is like gold in a treasury. If you spend it on fools, you bankrupt yourself. If you hoard it with calculation, you buy leverage. And when the decisive battle comes, you strike with force, while others are already burned out. Now, let's test this against your life. When someone tries to provoke you, do you take the bait? When someone insults you online, do you rush to defend yourself? When chaos erupts around you, do you always play the role of peacemaker, even when it destroys your own calm? If you do, then realize this: your energy is being profiled. Manipulators don't need to overpower you. They just need to exhaust you. They map your reactions, trigger your emotions, and watch as you bleed out your energy in battles that don't matter. So, let me ask you directly, and I want you to answer in the comments. What's the biggest energy leak in your life right now? Is it a toxic friend? A drama-filled relationship? Pointless arguments that never end? And how different would your life feel if you simply stopped feeding those fires? History gives us ruthless examples. Great generals didn't win by fighting every skirmish. They conserved. They let smaller enemies waste themselves. They waited, sharpened, and struck only when it mattered. Alexander the Great marched thousands of miles, not because he fought everyone, but because he refused to waste his army on battles that didn't shift the war. Machiavelli would call this strategic silence of the sword. Every arrow saved today is an arrow that can win tomorrow's war. And every ounce of energy you save by ignoring distractions is strength you can invest where it counts. So let me challenge you. The next time someone demands your reaction, pause. Ask, do they want resolution or do they just want control? If the answer is unclear, then default to silence. Because silence doesn't mean surrender. It means conservation. And conservation is what makes you dangerous. Picture this. One man reacts to every insult, every message, every problem. By nightfall, he's drained. Another man stays silent through the noise, only acting when it serves him. By nightfall, he's sharper, stronger, ready for the battles that matter. Which one do you think Machiavelli would call powerful? Here's the brutal truth. You were not built to be a public fountain, pouring yourself out for everyone's thirst. You were built to guard your fire like a fortress, because when your energy is sacred, your presence becomes rare. And when your presence becomes rare, it becomes power. So from now on, treat your energy like wealth. Don't waste it on gossip. Don't waste it on proving yourself. Don't waste it on people addicted to your yes. Instead, invest it where the return is power, clarity, and respect. If this resonates, type it below. My energy feeds no fools. Because Machiavelli knew, the man who spends himself endlessly dies before the war even begins. But the man who conserves, who withholds, who chooses carefully where his power flows, that man becomes untouchable. Silence isn't easy. Withdrawal isn't comfortable. Because the moment you step back, you face something most men fear more than enemies. You face yourself. At first, it feels like freedom. No more constant demands. No more endless explanations. But then comes the second wave. Doubt, loneliness, emptiness. You start to question yourself. Did I go too far? Was I too cold? Did I just burn the bridges I needed? This is the hidden pain of withdrawal. It's not the loss of others, it's the loss of the version of yourself that lived for their approval. It's the detox from the addiction of being needed. Machiavelli would not comfort you here. He would not pat you on the back and say, "It's okay." No, he would say, "Power is not born in applause, but in isolation." And isolation is not punishment, it is purification. Think about it. Every time you said yes just to avoid tension, you betrayed yourself. Every time you showed up just to be liked, you stepped further away from your sovereignty. And now, in silence, all those false layers begin to peel away. Carl Jung called this individuation the painful process of becoming whole. Machiavelli would call it something colder, strategic death, because until the obedient version of you dies, the sovereign one cannot be born. So let me ask you, have you ever felt the sting of pulling away from people who only loved your obedience? Have you ever sat alone, tempted to go back, to explain, to apologize just to escape the silence? And what would happen if you resisted that temptation? Look at history. Leaders who changed the world often vanished before they rose. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Isolation broke the man who once sought approval and forged the man who led a nation. Julius Caesar, after being captured by pirates, withdrew into silence and humiliation, only to return and crucify those who underestimated him. Even prophets and philosophers retreated to deserts, mountains, solitude, not to escape, but to emerge transformed. The pattern is clear. Great transformations are always born in solitude. But let's return to your life. Maybe you've stopped replying instantly. Maybe you've started saying no. And maybe you've noticed people don't clap for your boundaries. They accuse you. They say you've changed. They whisper you're arrogant. And in the silence, that hurts. So here's the deeper question. Are you really losing people? Or are you simply losing the illusion of people who never valued you in the first place? Machiavelli would tell you, you did not lose them. You lost the illusion of them. And in doing so, you found yourself. Because silence strips away the masks. Theirs and yours. It kills the actor who performed for applause. And it births the ruler who no longer begs to be seen. So let me ask you to confront this with honesty and share it in the comments. What part of yourself needs to die so that the stronger version of you can be born? Is it the need to be liked? The urge to explain? The addiction to being available? This is your rite of passage. It will feel unnatural. It will feel lonely. But so does every true rebirth. The lion does not roar in the crowd. He roars in solitude, when he finally remembers his own voice. And so will you. If you feel this in your soul, type it below. My solitude is my sanctuary. Because only in isolation do you discover the truth Machiavelli always knew. That silence is not the end of you. It is the end of who you were trained to be, and the beginning of who you choose to become. Silence and absence alone are not enough. Machiavelli understood something deeper. The true art of power lies not only in disappearing, but in reappearing at the right moment. Because here's the truth. What is always available becomes invisible. But what is rare, intentional, and unpredictable becomes unforgettable. Think of it like this. When you speak too often, your words lose weight. But when you choose your moments carefully, every sentence lands like thunder. When you show up everywhere, you become noise. But when you appear only when it matters, you become signal. So let me ask you, do people in your life treat your presence as a privilege or as a default? When you walk into a room, do they pause or do they barely notice? And what would happen if your presence became scarce enough to feel like a gift? Look at history. Steve Jobs rarely appeared in public, but when he walked on stage with that black turtleneck, the world stopped. Why? Because his absence built anticipation, and his return delivered impact. The same was true of Alexander the Great. He withheld himself, appearing at critical battles, and every appearance became legendary. Machiavelli would call this calculated presence. He wrote, "The prince who is always seen becomes ordinary, but the one who controls when and how he appears becomes unforgettable." Now, let's bring this closer to your life. Have you ever noticed that the colleague who only speaks in meetings once in a while is often listened to more carefully than the one who talks all the time? Have you noticed that the friend who rarely posts online gets more attention when they finally do? Scarcity creates gravity, and gravity creates power. But here's the mistake most people make. They confuse constant visibility with influence. They flood conversations, they over-explain, they chase attention, and in doing so, they erase their own impact. So let me flip the question back to you. When was the last time your presence truly moved people? Was it because you were always there, or because you chose your moment to arrive? This is why withdrawal and return must work together. Disappearance without reappearance is exile, but reappearance without absence is noise. The combination of both silence and timing creates fear, respect, and anticipation. Imagine this. You've been silent for days. People wonder where you've gone. Then, when you do return, not with excuses, but with clarity, with strength, with presence, suddenly, your words cut deeper. Your presence feels heavier. Your silence has primed them to listen. And here's the psychological truth. People don't value what they can predict. They value what they can't. That's why your absence is half the weapon, but your selective presence is the kill shot. So let me challenge you directly. The next time someone expects your immediate reply, wait. The next time you're tempted to explain yourself, pause. And when you do return, don't justify, declare. Don't defend, decide. Show them that your presence is not a leash they can pull, but a choice you control. Think of gold again. Its value isn't in how bright it shines. It's in how rare, how protected, how difficult it is to reach. Why should your attention, your presence, your energy be worth any less? So ask yourself right now and share it in the comments. Where in your life do you need to appear less, so that when you do appear, your presence shakes the room? Because Machiavelli would tell you, your time, your energy, your presence are not donations. They are weapons, and a weapon in constant use becomes dull. But a weapon drawn at the perfect time becomes unstoppable. So here is your command. Not everyone gets a reply. Not everyone gets an explanation. Not everyone earns your presence. If you feel this shift inside you, type it below. My presence is earned. Because from this moment forward, you are no longer a man of constant availability. You are a man of selective appearance. A man whose silence builds tension. A man whose return creates impact. And Machiavelli would smile, because he knew the most dangerous man is not the one who is always seen. It is the one who controls when, how, and why he appears. You've now seen the full arc of power. Kindness without boundaries becomes chains. Predictability kills respect. Endless explanations drain your energy. But withdrawal, silence, and selective presence, these are not weakness. They are weapons. They are the foundations of Machiavellian dominance. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your life has been wasted trying to prove, explain, or justify yourself to people who never truly valued you? And what would your life look like if, starting today, you stopped reacting and started calculating? Because here is the truth. You don't need to beg for respect. You don't need to demand recognition. You don't need to fight for validation. Respect doesn't come from chasing. It comes from withdrawing. Recognition doesn't come from shouting. It comes from silence. And validation doesn't come from being seen everywhere. It comes from being rare enough to matter. So here is your final command. Do not explain. Do not chase. Do not apologize for protecting your peace. From this moment forward, your silence is not retreat. It is rebellion. Your absence is not weakness. It is leverage. And your presence is no longer a default. It is a privilege to be earned. If you feel this, type it in the comments. I owe no explanations for protecting my power. Because Machiavelli knew, and now you do too. In a world addicted to noise, silence is not weakness. Silence is dominance. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to say could completely change the way you see life. The world does not care about your pain. It doesn't care how many nights you've cried, how many times you've fallen, or how many times you promised yourself, "Tomorrow I will change." No, the world will not wait for you. If you fall, others will step over you to move forward. If you are weak, you will be crushed, and history will never remember your name. Picture this. You are standing in the middle of a battlefield filled with corpses. The defeated lie there, mumbling the same old words, "I'll try again tomorrow." But far away, there is another man. He too has bled, has been betrayed, has collapsed. But he did not wait. He stood up, brushed the dust off his armor, and kept walking. And in the end, it was his name carved into history. Not those who promised, but the one who acted. The brutal truth is this. You can live another 40 years and still die in mediocrity. You can listen to hundreds of motivational videos, but if you don't change today, you will remain a slave to procrastination, to weak habits, to the fear of others' eyes. Machiavelli once warned, "Men truly change only when they are pushed to the wall." Consider this moment your final wall. Don't ask why others have everything while you don't. Don't wait for opportunity to knock. It won't. It only belongs to those ruthless enough to seize it. Look at the world today. Entrepreneurs like Elon Musk or cold-blooded politicians, they don't wait for miracles. They force time to serve them, and that's why their names are etched in history while millions of others fade into oblivion. So, be honest with yourself. How many times have you promised, "Tomorrow I'll start"? How many times have you comforted yourself with, "It's not the right time yet"? Look straight at the truth. Tomorrow is a lie. Tomorrow is the trap that has killed millions of dreams. And if you're truly ready, prove it. Right now, in the comments, just write 2 words. No tomorrow. Write it to remind yourself that there will be no more tomorrows, only today. Only this moment. And this is the moment that decides whether you will rise or keep waiting until you're left behind. Have you ever wondered why the cunning rise faster than you? Why the ones who flatter, who laugh at the right time, who shake the right hands, are given power while you are overlooked, even though you're more skilled, more hard-working, and more loyal? Don't be surprised. Life was never fair. It is a game of power, and in this game, those who know the hidden rules survive, while the naive are eliminated. Picture this. You've been a loyal employee for 10 years, always arriving early, leaving late, always working diligently, never complaining. Then one day, the position you've been waiting for goes to a newcomer. He hasn't done anything remarkable, but he knows how to smile at the right moment, how to praise the right person, and most importantly, he makes the boss feel he cannot be replaced. You rage. You ask yourself, where is the fairness? But Machiavelli would whisper, fairness does not exist. Only power exists, and power belongs to those who know how to leave an impression. The same applies in love. You give everything, stay loyal, sacrifice. Yet she leaves you for another man. A man who never calls first, never makes promises, always keeps her uncertain. And it is that very mystery that gives him power. Love is also a battlefield. And power always belongs to the one who keeps the other insecure, not to the one who is loyal to the point of being predictable. In politics, in business, even on social media, the rules are the same. People do not respect kindness. They only revere those who command, who can steer the crowd, who make others wary. Look at the media tycoons. With a single tweet, a single video, they sway the opinions of millions, while thousands of talented people disappear into silence. If you want to live differently, you must change the way you ask questions. Don't ask, "Why aren't they fair to me?" Ask, "How can I make it impossible for them to ignore me?" Don't ask, "Why don't they love me?" Ask, "How can I make them fear losing me?" And if you truly want to survive in the Machiavellian spirit, carve this truth into your mind. The world does not reward the best. It rewards those who can control the perception of others. Which side are you on? The side of those who believe in fairness, only to die bitter, or the side of those who know the rules of the game and bend them to their will? If you've ever witnessed a cunning man rise while an honest one was buried, leave just one word in the comments: truth, because that is the raw reality you cannot deny. I know, you've fallen. There were nights you lay there, helpless, your heart heavy as stone, wondering if you still had the strength to move forward. There were times you poured everything into your work, only for life to slap you so hard you no longer recognized yourself. The friend you trusted betrayed you. The person you loved walked away. The job you relied on collapsed in an instant, and you thought, "This is the end." But the truth is, no one cares how many times you've fallen. The world only cares about one thing, whether you rise again or not. Picture a fighter in the ring. He's been knocked down, blood dripping from his mouth. The crowd roars, some jeer. The referee begins the count. 1, 2, 3. The whole arena waits for him to give up. But then, trembling hands press against the floor, the battered body slowly rises. He stands. And in that moment, silence falls. Because everyone understands, the man who was just knocked down is now more dangerous than ever. Machiavelli would say, "A man who has fallen and still dares to rise is far more terrifying than one who has never fallen." So, how do you rise in a way that makes others tremble? Begin with silence. When betrayed, don't cry, don't rush to explain. Silence is the weapon that unsettles the most. Let them believe you are weak while you are watching, remembering, preparing. See failure through the eyes of a general. Don't see it as a personal tragedy, but as a battle to dissect. A general does not blame fate. He spreads out the map, marks the mistakes, studies every move, and returns to the battlefield with a plan that cannot fail. Do you dare to look at your failure that way? Turn pain into fuel. Remember every condescending look, every mocking word. Let them burn inside you, driving you to train twice as hard, work 3 times as much, and move in silence until the day they all bow before you. Today, you see this in entrepreneurs who once went bankrupt, lost everything, yet returned stronger, like Steve Jobs, who was thrown out of his own company, only to come back and turn Apple into an empire. They didn't just rise, they rose with fire in their eyes. The most dangerous enemy is not the strongest one, but the one who refuses to stay down. So, if you've fallen, but you choose to rise, prove it. Leave 3 simple words in the comments. I rise. Because once you dare to write it, you are no longer your old self. You have become a survivor, and a survivor is always the most dangerous of all. You and the most powerful man in the world both have the same thing: 24 hours, no more, no less. So, why does he build an empire while you remain stuck in place? The answer is simple. He uses time as a sword, while you've turned it into a pillow to lull yourself back to sleep. Picture two princes. One lives in luxury, feasting every day, convinced the throne will come to him when the time is ripe. But his cousin is different. While others sleep, he wakes early. He reads the art of war, trains with the sword, builds a network of loyalty. He does not boast. He quietly accumulates power. Years later, when the empire trembles, the throne does not belong to the one who waited, but to the one who used every second. Machiavelli once warned, "Time is the weapon of the wise and the grave of the foolish." If you don't use time, time will use you. If you don't command it, it will crush you. Be honest. Are you selling away every hour of your life to social media, to meaningless conversations, to procrastination? How many times have you wondered why your life never changes, without realizing you're the one letting each day die in vain? The truth is, it has already changed, just in the wrong direction. If you want to live like Machiavelli, you must see each day as a battlefield. Morning, you seize territory. Noon, you enforce discipline. Night, you review, sharpening your weapons for tomorrow. A day without a plan is a day you've already lost the moment you open your eyes. Ask yourself, how many times have you said, "I'll do it tomorrow"? How many times have your dreams died while you were still breathing? Today, how many people waste half a day scrolling their phones, clip after clip, only to realize they just lost the chance to build their future? Every passing day, you only have two choices: advance or retreat. There is no safe ground. The wise know that by improving just 1% each day, within a year they leave others miles behind. The foolish let each day be buried in routine, and at the end of their lives realize they never truly lived. Right now, place your hand on your chest and ask, whom do my 24 hours serve? Empty habits, other people, or your own dream? If you are truly ready to reclaim the sword called time, then declare it. Leave a vow in the comments. My time is mine. Because only when you dare to claim it will you turn each day into a battlefield where you don't just live, you conquer. There is a truth most people will never face. You cannot move forward if you are still chained to the past. You can work day and night, you can sketch out dozens of plans, but if your heart is still haunted by pain, by betrayal, by unresolved failure, then all you are doing is dragging along a corpse. Picture a king who has just lost a war. His fortress lies in ruins. His generals have abandoned him. His enemies celebrate. He sits alone in a cold chamber, staring at the dried blood on his armor. He has two choices: to embrace bitterness and die with it, or to turn that failure into a map leading to future victory. If you were him, what would you choose? To let pain kill you, or to let it forge you into steel? Machiavelli once said, "He who does not learn from failure will be buried by it." Failure is not the end. It is a secret document, but only those who dare to open it can learn. Have you ever rewritten one of your failures? Not with emotion, but with the eyes of a general. Where did the mistake lie? Who played the move more skillfully than I did? What was beyond my control, and what did I fail to see? Or did you simply choose to forget it, only to repeat it? When you are in pain, what do you usually do? You react immediately. You want instant revenge, but that is the moment you are weakest. Machiavelli would remind you, be silent, observe. Let others think you are dead, then strike when they no longer expect it. Do you have the cold discipline to swallow your anger, to restrain yourself, to wait for the right moment? Look around. How many have collapsed because they were too kind, because they trusted the wrong person? How many went bankrupt because of greed? How many lost everything because they could not control their emotions? You see them every day, from businessmen destroyed by scandal to celebrities who lost it all over one reckless outburst. But will you learn from them or repeat the same tragedy? I want you to ask yourself, what wound is still pulling you down? Have you ever dissected failure like a strategic report? Do you have the discipline to turn enemies into teachers and humiliation into fuel? Leave your answer in the comments. One word is enough. If you are still imprisoned by the past, write pain. If you are ready to turn it into a weapon, write strategy. Machiavelli never saw pain as an ending. For him, it was only the beginning of a counterattack. And if you truly understand this, then even the deepest wound will become the mark that makes you unstoppable. A mighty army once stood before a much weaker enemy, and yet they suffered a crushing defeat. Not because they lacked weapons, not because they lacked courage, but because they had no map. They fought with emotion, drew their swords on instinct, and scattered in chaos when the unexpected struck. An undisciplined army is nothing more than a mob, and people are no different. You may be ambitious, you may dream big, but if your dream only lives in your head, never written down, never turned into clear orders for yourself, it will wither and die. Countless people carry great dreams, but die in ordinary failure simply because they lacked discipline. Machiavelli once studied Cesare Borgia, the man called the Wolf Prince. Before every campaign, he wrote down every detail: who were allies, who were potential traitors, which road was safe, which road was a trap. He did not act on emotion, he acted on a plan, and it was that iron discipline that made him the terror of all Italy. So I ask you, are you living by your own map or following someone else's? Are you truly a master or just a mercenary for another man's dream? If you want to become unbeatable, you must impose discipline on yourself. You must turn goals into laws, and once a law is written, you no longer have the right to negotiate with yourself. Picture this. Every morning you wake, and before you is your own declaration. Not vague lines like, "I want success," but words carved like daggers into stone. In the next 30 days, I will complete X. If I fail, I will lose Y. This is no longer a dream. This is an order, and you will live or die to execute it. Have you ever posted your goal on the wall so you see it every day? Have you ever set a real price for failure? Or do you just scribble a few vague lines in a journal, only to forget them a week later? Humans are masters at forgiving themselves, and that self-forgiveness is what kills dreams. If you create no punishment, you will never take your promise seriously. Even a king needs a council. You too need someone powerful enough to supervise you, to remind you when you drift, to shame you when you break your own law. Look at sports or startups today. No legendary athlete or successful founder walks alone. They have coaches, mentors, people who dare to tell the truth and force them to keep discipline. Do you have someone like that in your life? If not, you will betray yourself again and again. So, do one thing right now. Write in the comments the single goal you will complete in the next 30 days. Just one. That will be your public vow, your declaration before the world. And when you do this, you will understand. Discipline is not a chain. It is the sword that cuts away everything standing between you and power. What if today were your last day? If, as night falls, death knocks at your door, what would you whisper to yourself when you look back? Would you smile knowing you lived fully, or tremble, realizing you wasted a lifetime waiting? Picture a general condemned to death. He knows that at dawn the blade will fall upon his neck. All night he could weep, he could beg. But instead, he writes his testament, drinks with his loyal men, and when morning comes, he walks to the execution ground with blazing eyes. He dies, but his name lives forever. While countless others, granted decades more, live as though they had already died long ago. Machiavelli would remind you, tomorrow is an illusion. The only thing that truly belongs to you is today. So why do you still act as if you have an entire lifetime to waste? How many times have you said, "I'll do it tomorrow"? How many opportunities have you murdered just to be comfortable for one more day? How many times have you lulled yourself with the lie, "I still have time"? The truth is, you don't. Life never warns before it takes away what you hold dearest. The person you spoke to yesterday might be gone today. The opportunity you reject today may never come back. And can you be certain you'll still be alive to hear another video after this one? Today, you see thousands of young people spending entire days on their phones, scrolling clip after clip. They believe they have a whole life to begin, but one day they wake up and every chance is gone. Then they ask themselves, why didn't I start sooner? If you truly want to live in the Machiavellian spirit, treat every day as your final battle. Each morning, ask yourself, if this were my last day, what would I do? If your answer is sleep in, scroll online, wait for inspiration, then you have already lost before the battle begins. Every time you say tomorrow, you are digging your own grave. So I have only one command for you. Act now. Not 3 steps, not 5, just 1. Do the thing you've been delaying. Write it down. Begin it. Do it. Because once you leave this video, that chance may never return. Be honest. If this were your last day, what would you do differently? Write the book you've been postponing, call the person you owe words to, or bury yourself in the screen, letting another day slip away into nothingness. Don't just think, declare it. Write in the comments right now just 2 words. No tomorrow. That will be your vow, the vow that you will not wait another day. Most will watch and forget, but a few, just a few, will turn today into their turning point. The question is, are you among the many or among the few? Look around you. How many people are living as if they were already dead? They wake up, go to work, complain, then sink back into sleep. An endless loop. They accept mediocrity as destiny. No more dreams, no more daring, just waiting for the end. And history will never speak their names. But you are different. You are still here, listening to these words. Don't think it's coincidence. This is a signal. This is the moment life is whispering to you, change now or disappear forever. Picture a wounded wolf. Blood runs down its fur, its legs trembling. The pack waits for it to collapse, but instead of falling, it rises. It lifts its head, eyes blazing red, and lets out a roar that silences the entire mountain. From that moment on, no one dares question its strength. You are the same. You have been betrayed, you have bled, you have fallen. But if you dare to rise right now, you will not only survive, you will become the one the whole world must fear. Machiavelli once said, "Men do not respect the gentle, they only respect those who make them tremble." Do not misunderstand. Tremble does not mean blind violence. It means authority. Presence, the aura of someone who cannot be ignored. So, what do you want? To be pitied or to be respected? To be the one waiting for opportunity or the one who forces opportunity to come to him? Engrave this truth in your mind. Power is never given. It is seized. Every time you act, you take back a piece of power from weakness, from fear, from those who once looked down on you. Today's world proves this more than ever. An unknown artist, with a single explosive song, can shift the entire music industry. A small startup, with one bold idea, can make a giant corporation tremble. Power has never belonged only to those who have it all, but to those who dare to seize the moment at the right time. This is the moment you must choose sides. After this video, there will only be 2 kinds of people. The first type, They click away, move on to the next distraction, return to procrastination, and live their whole lives as shadows. The second type, they act immediately. They rise, they write down the vow, they turn today into proof that they are no longer the same person. So, who are you? If you are truly ready, prove it. Leave a single vow in the comments. I rise to rule. Write it so you can return, read it again, and remind yourself that this was the day you changed. This was the moment you reclaimed the throne of your life. Do not forget, most will vanish into oblivion. They listen, they nod, and then they return to mediocrity. But a few, just a few, will turn pain into strength, silence into power, and today into the first step toward carving their names into history. The final question I leave you with: which of the two will you be? Listen carefully. From the moment you were born, the world began teaching you how to be weak. Your parents told you, be obedient. Your teachers told you, be fair. Society told you, be kind, agreeable, harmless. And you believed them. You thought these lessons were meant to protect you, but they weren't. They were meant to tame you. Picture this. You work hard, stay honest, play by the rules, yet the promotion goes to the manipulator who flatters the boss. You love with loyalty and devotion, yet she leaves for the man who keeps her guessing. You speak with logic and reason, yet the crowd follows the man who tells them a story that feels better. Stop. Let that sink in. Haven't you ever wondered why? Why the cunning rise while the honest remain invisible? Why the ruthless are respected while the nice are ignored? 500 years ago, one man gave us the answer. Niccolo Machiavelli. His book was so dangerous that the Catholic Church banned it. Too real, too sharp, too unfiltered. Yet, in secret kings, generals, presidents, CEOs studied every line. They condemned him in public, while privately using his wisdom to rule. And here's the truth. You were never supposed to learn this. You were meant to be predictable, obedient, manageable. But you're here now. And I'll warn you, once you see the world through Machiavelli's eyes, you'll never see people the same way again. Because from this moment forward, you're no longer playing checkers in a world built on chess. You've opened the forbidden book, and there's no going back. Here's the first forbidden truth. Human beings are not rational. They are emotional. You were told people make choices based on logic, on what's best for them. But if that were true, why do so many destroy themselves with their own decisions? A man coughs blood from years of smoking, yet he lights another cigarette. A worker drowning in debt buys the latest gadget he doesn't need. A woman who swears she wants kindness and stability runs back to the man who keeps her insecure. Logic doesn't rule them. Emotion does. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for all can see, few can feel." Translation: people don't act on truth. They act on appearances, impressions, feelings. Think about Caesar walking into the Roman Senate. He didn't need to explain his power with data or arguments. His presence alone, his calm authority, his aura was enough to silence the room. The senators didn't follow him because of reason. They followed because of what they felt in his presence: fear, awe, inevitability. Now imagine yourself in a meeting. You've stayed up all night preparing facts, charts, bulletproof logic. You present it all with trembling hope. The room is silent. No one moves. Then another man walks in. He has no data, no preparation, but he speaks with certainty, with vision. He makes the team feel like following him is destiny. Who wins the room? Not you. Him. That's when you realize facts don't decide influence. Feelings do. And here's the brutal part. Most men never learn this. They waste their lives trying to explain their way to respect. They hammer people with facts, hoping logic will win. But the truth is, people don't want logic. They want a story that validates their emotions. That's why politicians lie with smiles and still get elected. That's why charismatic leaders win battles they shouldn't. Napoleon once said, "A soldier will fight long and hard for a bit of colored ribbon." Was it rational for men to bleed for a medal? No. But emotionally, it made them feel seen, honored, immortal. So let me ask you, when was the last time you lost an argument you should have won? When was the last time someone ignored the truth you worked so hard to present? And what if you had spoken to their emotions instead of their logic? This is the first transformation. Stop playing chess with facts. Start playing with emotions. It may sound manipulative to men still trapped in illusions of fairness, but it isn't. Manipulation is when you deceive. Persuasion is when you speak the only language humans actually understand. Because here's the reality. Facts are forgotten. Feelings linger. No one remembers the perfect argument, but they'll never forget the man who made them feel. So decide. Do you want to be the man ignored despite being right, or the man respected because he could make others believe? Remember this. People don't follow truth. They follow the story that feels true. Let me give you a truth most men never grasp. Influence is not about facts, it's about feelings. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for all can see, few can feel." He was telling us something devastatingly simple. People don't follow reality, they follow perception. Picture two generals standing before their armies. The first lays out the plan with maps, logistics, and statistics. His men nod politely, but their eyes are hollow. The second steps forward with fire in his voice. He speaks of destiny, of honor, of their names echoing through centuries. His words set their blood on fire. Now tell me, which general will those men fight harder for? The one with the facts, or the one who made them feel like legends? It is the same everywhere. In the boardroom, in politics, in love. You walk in, armed with graphs, logic, airtight reasoning. You speak, but your voice trembles. You beg to be understood. Then another man enters. He has no preparation, but he speaks with calm certainty. He paints a vision larger than the room itself. Who wins the crowd? Not you. Him, every time. And here's the secret. That man isn't smarter than you. He just understands the real language of influence, the emotional one. Most men never learn it. They waste their breath trying to prove they are right. They cling to truth, as if truth alone will make people move. But truth doesn't move people. Emotion does. It's why crowds cheer dictators. It's why voters follow charisma over competence. It's why, in love, the man who creates tension is remembered, while the one who explains himself is forgotten. Those who control the emotional frame control the outcome. Napoleon knew this. He said, "A soldier will fight long and hard for a bit of colored ribbon." That ribbon wasn't rational. It was symbolic. It represented honor, pride, belonging. And for that feeling, men marched into cannon fire. So let me ask you directly, when people look at you, what do they feel? Do they feel tension, certainty, gravity, or do they feel nothing at all? Because if they feel nothing, you don't exist. This is why presence matters. Your tone, your posture, your silence. They speak louder than any fact you could present. Machiavelli understood it centuries ago. Perception is reality. And the man who controls perception controls the room. So here's the shift. Stop trying to win with logic. Start commanding with resonance. Don't just tell people what is right. Make them feel that choosing your side makes them greater. Let them believe they chose freely, when in truth, you guided every step. And carry this with you. Facts convince the mind, but feelings command the heart. And the man who commands the heart controls the world. From the time you were young, you were told one thing: be loyal. Loyal to your friends, loyal to your company, loyal to your partner. You were told loyalty itself was a virtue, that the more loyal you were, the more respect you would earn. But Machiavelli shattered that illusion with one brutal truth. Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose, it is far safer to be feared than loved. Because blind loyalty is not strength, it is weakness disguised as virtue. Think about it. A friend who only calls when he needs something, a company that tells you we're family until the next round of layoffs, a lover who keeps you waiting while exploring other options. Is that loyalty, or is it one-sided usage? Now ask yourself, how many times have you betrayed your own worth just to stay loyal to someone else? How many times have you given, forgiven, endured, while they took and took again? That's not loyalty. That's self-sabotage. Napoleon understood this truth. He said, "A soldier will fight long and hard for a bit of colored ribbon." Loyalty is never unconditional. It is always tied to reciprocity, recognition, reward. His soldiers didn't die for abstract honor. They died for what that ribbon represented: respect, belonging, meaning. Alexander the Great applied the same principle. His men were fiercely devoted, but they knew betrayal meant exile or worse. His trust was real, but never blind, and that balance made him unstoppable. This is what most men refuse to see. Loyalty must be earned. It is not a default setting. It is not something you hand out endlessly. It is a reward for consistent respect and reciprocity. The man who gives loyalty without return is not noble. He is a stepping stone, and you were not born to be stepped on. True strength is knowing when to give and knowing when to withdraw. Be generous with loyalty when it is deserved, but the moment it becomes one-sided, withdraw it without guilt, without hesitation. Because when people know your loyalty has boundaries, they value it more. When they understand losing you comes with consequences, they treat you differently. Your absence must feel expensive. So take a hard look at your circle. Who has truly earned your loyalty, and who has simply taken advantage of it? Machiavelli's wisdom is merciless but liberating. Blind loyalty does not make you righteous. It makes you predictable, and predictable men are always exploited. Remember this: stop giving loyalty as a gift. Start giving it as a reward. Because loyalty without limits is not honor, it is suicide. They told you reputation is about being liked, about being nice, about being agreeable. But Machiavelli cut through that illusion with a single truth. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few know what you really are. Reputation is not about being liked. It is about being respected. Picture this. You walk into a room. You haven't said a word, but already people are scanning you. They are deciding who you are, how far they can push you, whether they should respect you or dismiss you. They don't know the real you. They only know the story your reputation tells. Caesar understood this. When he crossed the Rubicon, he didn't need to explain his intentions. His reputation spoke for him. A man who never turned back. A man who would not be stopped. Rome feared his name more than his words. Centuries later, Steve Jobs lived by the same law. He didn't beg for approval or ask permission. He walked on stage in his black turtleneck, unveiled a product, and let his reputation for vision carry the weight. You didn't need to like him, but you respected him. Now imagine yourself. In a meeting, one man complains about problems. Another speaks with solutions. Which one does the room respect? You already know. This is where most men fail. They think authenticity means exposure. They reveal everything, believing people will admire their vulnerability. But oversharing is not power, it is weakness. True power is strategic authenticity. You don't reveal everything, you reveal just enough. You don't hide who you are, you curate what people see. Because perception isn't part of reality. Perception is reality. So ask yourself, what story does your reputation tell when you're not in the room? Do people call you dependable or disposable? Valuable or replaceable? Powerful or harmless? The truth is, you already have a reputation. The only question is whether you shape it or let others shape it for you. Here's the formula Machiavelli would give you. Mystery, consistency, scarcity. Mystery keeps people guessing. Consistency builds credibility. Scarcity creates demand. Combine them, and you become magnetic. Not because you are loud, but because your silence carries weight. So remember this. Don't chase being liked. Build being respected. Your reputation walks into the room before you do. Make sure it speaks louder than you ever could. From childhood, they told you to avoid conflict. Keep the peace. Don't make waves. But Machiavelli destroyed that illusion with one line. War cannot be avoided. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. Conflict is not optional. It is inevitable. Picture this. A general stands on the edge of a battlefield. He doesn't want war, but the enemy advances anyway. His choice is simple: fight now or be crushed later. Now bring it closer to your own life. In the office, someone wants your position. In love, someone wants her attention. In social circles, someone is always testing how far they can push you before you push back. You can pretend the world is neutral. You can whisper, "I just want peace." But peace without strength is only the silence before the storm. Winston Churchill said it best. You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth. You cannot negotiate with envy. You cannot debate with ambition. You cannot bargain with betrayal. If you are unprepared, you are already losing. Imagine you're in a meeting. A rival steals your idea and claims it as his own. Do you stay quiet for peace, or do you sharpen your words and reclaim what is yours? Imagine your partner crosses the same boundary again and again. Do you let it slide for comfort, or do you draw the line, even if it costs you? Your answer decides whether you are respected or erased. Machiavelli taught that power is a balance between the lion and the fox. The lion uses strength to strike fear. The fox uses cunning to avoid traps. A lion without cunning falls into every snare. A fox without strength gets eaten by wolves. But a man who becomes both the lion and the fox is untouchable. So ask yourself, which are you? The man who prays conflict never comes, or the man who quietly sharpens his blade, knowing it always will? Preparation is more than weapons. It is saving money when others waste it, training your body when others grow complacent, building skills while no one is watching, disciplining your mind while others drown in distraction. Because when the test comes, and it always comes, you won't have time to prepare. You will either stand ready or fall broken. Machiavelli's wisdom is merciless but freeing. Stop fearing conflict. Start preparing for it. Because the man who fears conflict is already defeated. The man who prepares for war, even in peace, cannot be conquered. For generations, you were told a lie. Just be nice, and people will like you. But Machiavelli would laugh at that illusion, because niceness and goodness are not the same thing. Niceness is easy. It bends. It avoids conflict. It seeks approval. Goodness is hard. It stands firm. It confronts. It holds principle, even when it costs. Picture two men. The first is the nice guy. He says yes when he wants to say no. He swallows every insult in the name of peace. He avoids confrontation, terrified of rejection. People smile at him, thank him, and then forget him. The second is the good man. He is not cruel, he is not reckless, but when a line is crossed, he enforces it. He speaks uncomfortable truths. He risks being disliked because his standards matter more than approval. People may resent him, they may fear him, but they never ignore him. Ask yourself, who do you respect more? History gives the answer. Abraham Lincoln was not nice. He was mocked, hated, even despised in his own time. But he was good. Good in the sense that he upheld principle above popularity. And because of that, he is remembered as one of history's greatest leaders. Meanwhile, countless nice politicians came and went, forgotten, because they chose comfort over clarity. Now bring it closer. Why do women say they want a nice guy, but chase the man who challenges them? Because niceness feels safe, but it also feels weak. Goodness, paired with strength, carries weight, and weight is magnetic. So ask yourself, how many times have you kept silent to avoid offending someone, only to lose their respect anyway? How many times have you betrayed your own values just to be liked and ended up invisible? Niceness seeks comfort. Goodness demands courage, and courage always earns respect. Here lies the paradox. The man who risks being disliked often becomes the most respected of all. The man who dares to be firm often becomes the one others follow, because people do not respect those who beg for approval. They respect those who live by a code, even if that code makes them unpopular. So here is your choice. Do you want to be remembered as the man who bent, who pleased, who vanished into the background, or as the man who stood, who fought, who carved his name into history? Niceness is forgettable, but goodness, when paired with strength, is unforgettable. Remember this: nice men are liked, but good men are remembered. Here's a brutal truth: words lie, actions don't. Machiavelli warned us, men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims. People will promise anything. They will swear loyalty, swear love, swear respect. But promises are theater, behavior is truth. Picture this. Your boss praises you. You're doing great. You're next in line. Months pass. The promotion never comes. His words meant nothing. His actions told the truth. A friend says, "You're like a brother to me." But the moment you say no to a favor, he disappears. His behavior revealed his nature. A partner says, "You're the only one." Yet she hides her phone, flirts with options, keeps you waiting. Her actions cut deeper than her words ever could. Now think back to your own life. How many times have you believed words you wanted to hear, while ignoring the behavior screaming reality? Caesar never made that mistake. He did not judge senators by their oaths, but by their patterns, their ambition, their moves. That is why he foresaw betrayal, because he trusted behavior, not declarations. Alexander the Great rewarded his men not for what they promised, but for what they proved in battle. Blood, not speeches, bought his trust. So let me ask you, who in your life is speaking pretty words but showing ugly patterns? And worse, are you doing the same? Do your actions align with your promises, or are you hiding behind words, hoping no one notices? Most men cling to words because words feel good. They want to believe the lie. They want comfort more than clarity, and that is why they are betrayed again and again. But when you learn to read actions, everything changes. You stop being deceived. You stop being blindsided. You stop giving loyalty to those who never earned it. Because people reveal themselves every day, not in speeches, but in small choices. The co-worker who always forgets to help. The friend who only shows up when he needs something. The partner who repeats the same betrayal, no matter how many apologies. Patterns don't lie. So remember this. Words can be faked, actions cannot. If you want to know the truth about someone, ignore what they say, watch what they do. Most men believe power is about controlling others, money, status, charm, influence. But Machiavelli knew the greatest power is not control over others. It is control over yourself. Picture this: a council chamber in Florence. Dozens of men shout, argue, slam their fists on the table, and at the far end sits one man, silent, calm, unmoved. His stillness drowns out their noise. While others bleed their emotions into the air, his composure becomes the loudest voice in the room. Who do you respect more? The men who scream, or the man who doesn't need to? Now think about your own life. When was the last time you lost control? You exploded in anger. You said something you regret. You let emotion dictate action. Did you gain respect or lose it? Most people live like slaves to their impulses. They react to every insult. They panic at every setback. They crave attention, validation, comfort. They overshare, they overreact, they overindulge. And what does that make them? Predictable. And predictable men are easy to control. Machiavelli warned, men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims. Most men are chained to those immediate needs: hunger, lust, ego, fear. That is why they are pawns. But imagine being the exception. Imagine being the man who doesn't flinch when provoked, who doesn't chase when ignored, who doesn't panic when threatened. Think of two lions. The first roars recklessly at every shadow, wasting energy, exposing himself. The second waits in silence, eyes locked, muscles coiled. When he strikes, it is decisive and final. Which lion survives longer? Which one dominates? Self-control is not suppression, it is precision. It is not about being cold, it is about being deliberate. Every word becomes a chess piece, not a dice roll. Every silence becomes sharper than noise. Every action is intentional. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, ruled the most powerful empire on earth. But his greatest victories weren't on the battlefield, they were in his mind. He trained himself daily to master impulses, to remain unmoved in chaos. That is why he endured what crushed other men. So, ask yourself, when others push your buttons, do you dance to their rhythm, or do you make them dance to yours? When the world demands a reaction, do you explode blindly, or do you respond with precision? Here is the truth. The strongest man in the room is never the loudest. It is the one who doesn't need to prove anything. And when you reach that level, people feel it. They lean in when you speak, because your words are rare. They hesitate before disrespecting you, because they cannot predict you. They sense your presence, not through noise, but through silence. Machiavelli's lesson is ruthless but liberating. Master yourself, and you will never be mastered. Remember this: the man who masters himself cannot be mastered by anyone else. Most men don't live. They react. They wake up and reach for their phone. They scroll. They swipe. They consume whatever distraction is placed in front of them. They react to messages, to noise, to the demands of others, and then they wonder why life feels rigged, why others rise while they stay stuck, why opportunities always slip through their fingers. The answer is simple: they are living reactively, not strategically. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He knew the world isn't neutral. It is a game. A ruthless game of perception, positioning, and power. And in every game, there are only two kinds of men: the players and the pawns. Picture two men sitting at the same chessboard of life. The first is the reactive man. Every move against him shocks him. He flinches, scrambles, defends. His opponent dictates the pace because his moves are predictable. The second is the strategic man. He doesn't react instantly. He thinks 3 moves ahead. He sacrifices small pieces today for checkmate tomorrow. He controls the board, not through noise, but through foresight. Now ask yourself, who are you right now? The pawn or the player? Look at business. The reactive man explodes in meetings when challenged. The strategic man smiles, waits, and lets his rival overreach before striking back. Look at love. The reactive man clings desperately when ignored. The strategic man pulls away, creates scarcity, and becomes more valuable. Look at life. The reactive man chases every distraction. The strategic man builds, invests, and prepares so when opportunity arrives, he is already ready. Strategy is not manipulation. It is awareness. It is recognizing that every silence, every word, every choice is a move on the board. Most men roll dice. Strategic men move chess pieces. So ask yourself again, do you control the pace, or are you being dragged by it? Do you see only the present, or do you see 3 moves ahead? Here is the brutal truth Machiavelli forces you to face. The man who sees only the present is already lost, but the man who sees the next 3 moves cannot be defeated. Stop chasing, stop reacting, start designing, save when others waste, train when others relax, build when others destroy, because the future does not belong to the strongest or the loudest. It belongs to the most strategic. Life is not fair. Life is not random. Life is chess. You are either the player or the pawn. Choose wisely. So here we are. The illusions are gone. The curtain is torn. You've seen what most men will never dare to see. You now know that people are emotional, not rational. That loyalty is conditional, never blind. That reputation is gravity. It speaks before you do. That conflict is inevitable, and only the prepared survive. That niceness is weakness, but goodness demands strength. That words can lie, but actions always reveal the truth. That the ultimate weapon is not charm, wealth, or force, it is self-control. This is the forbidden knowledge Machiavelli left behind. Knowledge so sharp the church tried to bury it. Knowledge so dangerous kings and generals studied it in secret. And now it belongs to you. But clarity comes with a burden, because now you can no longer pretend, you can no longer claim ignorance, you can no longer live as a pawn. From this moment on, your silence will carry weight. Your presence will shift rooms. Your choices will decide whether you are treated as a man of power or a man to be used. So remember this: the most powerful man in the room is never the loudest. It is not the one begging to be liked. It is the one who knows who he is and refuses to compromise. Be that man. Live with strategy, stand with strength, and never again bow to the illusions that keep the masses weak. The forbidden book is open now, and from this moment on, you can never go back. Have you ever wondered why the very people who drain you the most are often the ones you tried hardest to treat the best? They don't scream, they don't curse, they simply stay silent and twist reality. A message left unanswered, a smirk when you fail, a careless remark planting doubt inside you. And when you finally break, they look back at you as if you were the one with the problem. It could be that coworker who always pretends to be harmless, but behind your back stabs you with subtle cuts. It could be that family member whose silence keeps you anxious without reason. Or worse, the person you once loved, gave everything to, only to be turned into a puppet in their emotional game. You walk away exhausted, whispering to yourself, "I just want to keep the peace. I don't want to make things worse." But the more you give in, the more you feel a silent war burning inside you. Outwardly, a forced smile. Inwardly, a scream of exhaustion. Machiavelli would never advise you to live like this. He would ask bluntly, "Are you truly being kind, or are you simply allowing others to eat away at you, piece by piece?" Toxic people don't want understanding. They want to study your reaction. They don't need explanations. They crave your explosion. And every time you over-explain, every time you apologize, every time you beg them to understand, you are falling right into the trap they set for you. The brutal truth is this: you cannot fix someone who has no intention of changing. Your tears, your promises, your patience only sharpen their game. This is the moment you must ask yourself, who really controls my life, me or them? And let me warn you, 99% of people will nod at this point and then go back to suffering as usual. Only 1% dare to act. Which group do you belong to? Try this small challenge right now. Think of the one person who is draining your energy and silently write their name inside your mind. Don't say it. Don't message them. Just acknowledge the truth. Because only when you face the truth head-on are you ready for the next step. And the next step is Machiavelli's first strategy: intentional silence. Toxic people survive on one thing: your reaction. They plant a vague comment, a half smile, a stretched pause, then sit back and observe. Not to understand, but to measure. How long you'll fidget, how quickly you'll rush to explain, how easily you'll spiral just because of a calculated silence. Remember this: they don't need to scream in your face. All they have to do is stay silent long enough, and you will end up screaming at yourself. A coworker sends you an email with a sneer. "Oh, finally got it right once." You feel the heat rush to your face, your hand trembling as you type a reply. Desperate to remind them you've done it right 100 times before. But the more you react, the more you prove they've won. A family member suddenly goes quiet for an entire day, not answering your messages. You panic. What did I do wrong? Are they mad at me? You type out a stream of apologies, promises, explanations, only to receive a cold reply. Nothing. And in that moment, you realize you've been chasing a void. Make no mistake, they are not seeking reconciliation. They are seeking fuel, and your emotions are the fuel that keeps their game alive. That's the game, and Machiavelli would tell you, never step onto their board. Intentional silence means you stop being the puppet. You cut the strings. You stop reacting. Stop feeding the energy they leech from you. When they mock, all you need are 3 words. I noted that. When they torture you with silence, you meet silence with silence, not anxious silence, but silence of control. You let the emptiness pass like wind, instead of turning it into a storm inside you. What toxic people fear most is not your anger. What terrifies them most is not being able to predict you anymore, because once you embrace intentional silence, their game collapses. You may think, "But I just want to keep the peace." Here's the truth. Silence doesn't create more conflict. It simply exposes the truth. And the truth is the peace you thought you were keeping never existed in the first place. Imagine this: a heated argument. They scream in your face, blaming you for everything. Instead of reacting, you hold their gaze, take a breath, and say, "That's your opinion." Then you stand, walk out of the room. You don't need to yell. You don't need to prove. You simply reclaim the power they were used to holding over you. That's not avoidance. That's control. Next time you receive a message or comment that makes you want to react instantly, try the 3-hour rule. Count to 10, take a deep breath, and let at least 3 hours pass before responding. Or perhaps, don't respond at all. After 3 hours, ask yourself, is my reply truly necessary? Machiavelli once wrote, "Reaction is weakness, intention is power." And when you choose strategic silence, you send a cold, clear message. I am no longer your puppet. I was not fair, and this is only the first step. If silence is the shield that protects you from their traps, then the next strategy is the sword that cuts through their control. Boundaries as weapons. Since childhood, you were taught, saying no is rude, refusing is selfish, setting limits means you lack love. And so, you grew up in a world where people believe they have the right to step into your mind, as if it were an abandoned house. They knock whenever they want, dump their emotions whenever they please. And you sit in silence, enduring it, convinced that this is what it means to be a good person. But the truth is, it's the absence of boundaries that turns you into an easy target for control. Think back. How many times have you nodded yes to something while your soul was screaming no? How many times have you answered work messages at 11 p.m. just because you feared being seen as irresponsible? How many hours have you sat listening to a relative complain endlessly, even while your mind was drained, just because you didn't want to be called cold? Don't mistake it, this isn't kindness. It's an unspoken invitation for others to control you, and they will never refuse such an invitation. Every time you endure, you reinforce their belief. This person won't say no. This person will tolerate it. This person will never set limits. And that's when they push further. Machiavelli didn't view boundaries as moral choices. He saw them as weapons, a sword, a sharp line that decides who gets in and who must stay out. A boundary is not a plea, it is a strategic decision. For example, a coworker keeps texting about work after hours. You don't need to write a long explanation about family or rest. You simply say, I don't respond to work messages after 7 p.m. Short, decisive, no apologies. Or a friend who only comes to you when they need to dump negativity, then vanishes when you need them. You can say, I'm no longer available for long negative rants. Then stop. No justification. No quick reassurance. Right now, write down 3 new boundaries for yourself. 1 for work, 1 for family, 1 for social relationships. And when someone crosses them, respond with a short sentence. No justification. No nervous smile. Then silence. The most important truth is this: boundaries only have value when you enforce them. Toxic people don't cross boundaries because they don't understand. They cross because they know you won't act. They test once, you let it slide. Twice, you soften. By the 3rd time, you're back where you started. To enforce boundaries means, if a rule is violated 3 times, you revoke access. Not with anger, but with coldness. Reduce exposure, limit topics, and if necessary, close the door without announcement. People will say, you've changed, you're selfish, you're heartless. And they're right, you have changed. Because only the weak fear being called selfish for protecting themselves. The strong don't ask permission to protect their peace. And once boundaries are in place, you'll see them try everything to break through. They'll cry, they'll guilt trip, they'll beg for one last chance. And when that happens, you'll need the next strategy, the inversion move, disappearing like a ghost. What do toxic people want from you? Not apologies, not forgiveness. What they truly crave is reaction. Arguments, tears, endless messages. Whether positive or negative, every ounce of emotion you feed them becomes fuel to sustain their control. And this is the sweetest trap. You think you're resolving the issue, but in reality, you're only feeding it. Picture this. You have an ex who constantly drags you into endless cycles. Every time you try to walk away, they text, "We need to talk one last time." "You owe me an explanation." And suddenly, you're back, spending hours arguing, crying, explaining only to end up pulled right back in. The inversion move teaches you to do the opposite. No debates, no justifications, no final conversations. When they say, "You've changed," you respond, "Yes," short, cold. Nothing more. When they demand closure, you don't give it. Because closure isn't a gift they hand you, it's a verdict you deliver to yourself. At work, a colleague loves dragging you into endless drama. They whisper, "The boss doesn't seem happy with you." If you fall into the trap, you scramble, desperate to prove your innocence. But with the inversion move, you simply reply, "Noted." Then turn back to your work. No reaction. No doorway left open for another second of conversation. Toxic people are used to your explanations. They're used to your panic. They're used to you turning into their stage. But when you withdraw all emotional energy from the board, their performance collapses into emptiness, and emptiness terrifies them. They will press harder, cry, accuse, even lash out in rage. But don't be fooled. That isn't love. It isn't regret. It's just withdrawal, the addict losing their fix. They're not used to your silence, and that silence is what destroys their entire strategy. For the next 72 hours, try becoming a ghost once. When someone demands explanations or begs for one last chance, respond with a single cold line or not at all. Watch carefully. Who truly worries because you're silent, and who only worries because they're losing control of you. The inversion move is not escape, it is a deliberate retreat. You don't disappear to be missed. You disappear because at last you see the game clearly and you refuse to play. Machiavelli would call this a form of silent power. Power doesn't live in shouting. Power lives in disappearance, the kind that leaves your opponent with nothing to hold on to. And once you've become the ghost, you'll need something new, a cold, sharp language that cuts through every loop instantly. That is strategy 4, Machiavellian language, cut phrases. Here's a brutal truth. In every act of manipulation, your words are the chains. The more you explain, justify, or try to make them understand, the deeper you sink. Toxic people don't need to win with logic. They only need you to keep talking. Every word you spill becomes another weapon they can twist and turn against you. And this is why most of us fail. We try to use language to free ourselves, forgetting that language itself is the trap. Machiavelli would never tell you to speak more. He would tell you to speak less, far less. Only short, sharp, cold sentences, cut phrases that slice through the cycle instantly. Picture this. You're arguing with a blame shifter. They snap. "If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be like this." Your instinct is to defend yourself, to explain. But instead of writing an essay, you reply with, "That's your opinion. That's it. No more." The game ends as soon as it begins. Or a coworker keeps messaging you after hours. You don't need to write, "Sorry, I'm with family. I hope you understand." You cut straight. "I don't respond to work messages after 7 p.m. Decisive, cold, no apology. A family member accuses, "You've changed. You don't care about the family anymore." You could soften, trying to prove you still care. But the precise cut phrase is, "Yes, I've changed." Short, final. No doors left open. Choose one cut phrase right now. Write it down. Put it in your wallet or stick it on your desk. Next time someone provokes you, use it instead of a long reaction. 10 cut phrases you must carve into your mind. 1. No. 2. I'm not available for that. 3. That's your opinion. 4. I don't explain myself to people who twist my words. 5. If the tone isn't respectful, I'm done here. 6. I'm not engaging in this conversation. 7. That's not a priority for me. 8. This is the last time I'll repeat this boundary. 9. This doesn't work for me. 10. I'm not present for this kind of dialogue. Each phrase is a cold cut. not to win the argument but to end it. Like drawing a blade, swift, bloodless, but enough to make the opponent know the game is over. Toxic people will try to twist you back. Why are you so cold? Don't you care about my feelings? But remember, they aren't seeking truth. They're seeking an opening to drag you back in. And if you answer with long explanations, you just gave them what they wanted. Machiavelli once wrote, "One precise phrase can cut 1,000 chains." Don't become the talker in a game designed for you to lose. Become the one who speaks little, but every word is the ending stroke. But sharp language alone isn't enough. Toxic people will keep testing your emotions. And for that, you'll need a deeper power emotional discipline, the force that lets you own the entire room with nothing but calm. That is strategy 5. Toxic people aren't stronger than you. They're simply better observers. They notice every frown, every sigh, every frantic message you send. They don't need physical strength. What they want is the emotional map of your mind. And once they have that map, controlling you is as easy as pulling the strings of a puppet. This is why you often feel defeated. Not because you're weak, but because you've handed them control over your heartbeat. Picture this. In a meeting, a co-worker sneers. "Let's hope you don't screw it up this time." The whole room laughs. Heat rushes to your face. Every muscle begs you to fight back, but you hold. You take a breath, lift your head, and say calmly, "We'll see." Short, steady, without justification. In that moment, the air shifts. You're not the one embarrassed. They are, because their strike didn't land. That is the power of emotional discipline. Machiavelli once wrote, "He who controls himself truly possesses power." Toxic people win when you explode, when you panic, when you react too fast. But when you command the rhythm inside yourself, the entire game changes. Emotional discipline is not cold indifference. It's the ability to know when to respond, when to remain silent, and when to walk away. Try this 7-day exercise. Each night, write down 3 moments that drained your energy. Maybe a text from a coworker shifting blame, a phone call from a relative just to complain, or a relationship where every conversation leaves you empty. When you write them down, patterns appear. Who drains you the most? When? And how? Then, assign each person a number from 0 to 10. 0 means harmless. 10 means soul-draining. These numbers don't lie. They reveal who truly owns space in your mind. Next time, before responding to anyone who irritates you, pause. Practice the 10-minute rule. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Repeat until 10 minutes pass. Then ask yourself, do I really need to respond right now? Toxic people want you restless. They feed on impulsive reactions. But when you control your breath, your eyes, your voice, they lose their grip. And that's the moment you own the room, not by shouting, but by sitting still, solid as stone. Make no mistake, this calm is not an act. It's the result of discipline. And once you master it, others will feel something strange. They'll stop daring to provoke you. But emotional control alone isn't enough. To turn this strength into a law of power, you need the cold principles Machiavelli called the laws of power. And that is strategy 6. A strategy is only strong when it has laws to guard it. Without laws, you'll soften, forget, and fall back into old habits. Machiavelli knew this well. The one who holds power is not the kindest. It's the one who sets the laws and enforces them without hesitation. Here's the harsh truth. If you don't set laws, others will set them for you. Carve these 10 laws of power into your mind. Each one is both a sword and a shield, and you must use them not just once, but for life. Law 1. Whoever gets angry when you set boundaries is the one who benefited when you had none. The coworker resents you for refusing overtime. The relative calls you selfish when you stop carrying their burdens. They're not mad because you're wrong. They're mad because you cut off their supply. Law 2. Blind loyalty turns you into a slave. In love or in work, if you prove loyalty by suffering, you're not a partner, you're a servant. Those who respect you will never test how much pain you can endure. Law 3. You are not obligated to heal anyone. You can care, you can support, but if they refuse responsibility, their wounds will turn into weapons against you. Law 4. If you must argue for your worth, you're standing in the wrong place. True love doesn't require proof. True respect doesn't need justification. If you must beg to be valued, you've already lost it. Law 5. Silence is calculated control. Never argue with fire. Remove the oxygen. A simple, "That's your opinion," can extinguish an inferno. Law 6. Guilt is a chain. Every time you hear, "You've changed," or "You don't care anymore," remember, it's not truth. It's a tactic. Cut the chain, and you walk free. Law 7. Closure is not a conversation. It's a verdict you give yourself. You don't need an apology. You don't need a final meeting. Closure happens the moment you say, "Enough," and the door closes. Law 8. Time and access are privileges, not default rights. Just because someone once entered your life doesn't mean they get a lifetime pass. Access to you must be re-earned, and it can be revoked at any time. Law 9. Emotional discipline is power. The loudest voice isn't the strongest. The calm one, the one who knows when to speak, when to stay silent, owns the room. Law 10. You are no longer the person they once manipulated. You've changed. You've seen the game. And this time, when they try again, you won't react the same way. Choose one of these 10 laws. Write it down where you'll see it every day. This week, apply it at least once. Then ask yourself, how much lighter do you feel when you stop playing by their rules? Machiavelli once said, "Laws do not exist to decorate. Laws exist to be enforced. If you only read, you'll forget. But if you enforce, each law becomes a layer of steel armor around you. And sometimes, even with laws, you'll face the hardest choice of all: to leave, quietly, without explanation, to walk away in silence. That is strategy 7, the cold exit. We often believe that to end a toxic relationship, we need a long conversation, a final explanation, or a carefully written message. But the truth is, every ending like that is just another door opened for the game to continue. Toxic people don't want closure. They want another loop, another chance to pull you back. And this is the most dangerous illusion. You think words can free you. In reality, only silence can. Picture this. A woman endures 10 years of a controlling marriage. She has cried, begged, written letters to make her husband understand, but he never changes. Then one morning, she says nothing. She simply packs her things, closes the door, and leaves. No message, no goodbye, no last time. And it is that silence that makes it final. Or at work. You have a boss who praises you in public but cuts you down in private. You've tried to prove yourself, worked twice as hard, waited for recognition, but recognition never comes. The day you quietly send your resignation email, no justification, no storytelling, no explanation, that is the day you take your power back. The cold exit doesn't mean you disappear from the world. It means you cut a toxic person's access to your life. You're no longer the emotional switch they can press at will. Yes, they will call you heartless. They will brand you cold. They will say you've changed, that you betrayed them. But remember this, they're not crying because they lost you. They're crying because they lost control of you. Right now, Write down the name of one person you know you need to leave, or one situation you need to walk away from. You don't have to announce it, just write it. Then plan your cold exit, one clear step that cuts their access, silent, decisive, unapologetic. The cold exit is not revenge. It is rescue. It is not cruelty. It is clarity. Because if you don't leave, you risk trading 5 years, 10 years, even your whole life for a game that will never change. Machiavelli would say, "Power doesn't lie in winning every argument. Power lies in being able to walk away and never return." And once you have the courage to leave, you step into a new chapter where peace is no longer something you beg for, and where your boundaries become your legacy. That is what we will conclude in the final part. In the end, you realize one truth. Toxic people are not complicated. They repeat the same formula over and over: silence to punish, sweetness to bind, guilt to pull you back. What makes them win is not intelligence, but the fact that you played with emotion while they played with power. But from now on, the rules have changed. You no longer fight with tears, you fight with strategy. The 7 Machiavellian strategies don't make you heartless. They make you the guardian of your most sacred territory, your mind, your time, your energy. And when you defend that territory, every manipulation becomes powerless. Look back. You learned intentional silence, cutting off their fuel. You drew boundaries like swords, lines no one crosses without consequence. You practiced the inversion move, vanishing like a ghost, leaving them trapped in their own play. You mastered cold language, cut phrases that end the cycle in a single line. You built emotional discipline, owning the room through calm presence. You carved the 10 laws of power into your life, enforcing them as your compass. And finally, you embraced the cold exit, walking away without return. They will say, "You've changed," and your answer should be, yes. Because if you don't change, you will keep repeating the same draining spiral. Choose one of these 7 strategies, just one. Apply it within the next 24 hours. No announcement, no waiting for the right moment. Let action prove that you've changed your role in the game. Years from now, when people speak of you, what will they say? That you gave until you were empty? Or that you stood, walked away, and never looked back? Machiavelli once wrote, "Real power is never given. It is held fast through discipline. And the greatest discipline is refusing to be manipulated." So guard your peace as you would guard a kingdom. Set boundaries, keep silence when needed, and if you must leave, leave coldly without a word. Now, comment below. Which strategy will you apply this week? Write it down so the world, and you know this, you no longer play by anyone else's rules. Because power is not shouting louder. Power is walking away and never coming back. They only control you, if you let them. But once you learn Machiavelli's darkest lesson, no one can ever touch your power. This is not just a playlist. This is 4 weapons. 4 keys to power, left behind by Machiavelli. The first video, They Can't Control You If You Do This, Machiavelli's Darkest Lesson. How to break every invisible chain of manipulation. The second, I shouldn't be teaching you this, but here we are, Machiavelli's warning. A ruthless warning that most people don't dare to hear. Don't scroll away. Because the moment you ignore this, that's the moment someone else takes control. Drop one word in the comments, power, to remind yourself never to hand it over again. The third video, you'll see this when you're ready to change, Machiavelli. The awakening moment, the door to real transformation. And finally,